All right. The timer has been set 21 minutes on the clock. Time waits for nobody. So we're going to do the damn thing. Welcome back to another 21 minutes of Bitcoin, which is my weekly show every Friday. 20 minutes or less, and we'll cover all the news that I saw this week worth touching on. And we're going to try some different formats this week. So I got some high-level news that I'm going to touch on. I got some stuff about Russia. I got some stuff about Taproot Wizards, a new Grayscale report that was dropped, Presidio Bitcoin, Thunder Funder, opcode upgrades, and some other things. I'm also going to try, this is a work in progress, but I want to give a high-level update of what I'm seeing across the ecosystems, which is a pretty heavy task because it's hard to find the high signal across 20 different L2s. So this is the first pass at it. I got some gems of stuff that's happening in Stacks, in Rootstock, in Lightning, in Babylon, and a couple others. And this will expand over time, especially as I can find people to help me kind of like sort through the noise. And then we'll close off with, I'll give you a couple pieces of reading material or videos that I thought were interesting that you can check out over the weekend. So without further ado, we'll start with Russia, which this one isn't too crazy to think about, but ever since the war in Ukraine, the US and other countries have been trying to enact sanctions on Russia to make them act better. And they froze assets, froze gold, and they've kept finding ways around it. And there was a report that just dropped from Reuters, I think yesterday, that there are intermediaries popping up that are allowing trade between Russia and China predominantly. And the way they're doing it is someone will act in the middle and they'll go from the yuan to something like BTC, and then they'll handle the trade. And then on the Russian side, they'll convert it from BTC into rubles, and then they can get their trade done. So I don't think anybody's shocked hearing this. Everyone kind of knew they were going to find ways around it. And BTC as a kind of a neutral currency is a natural fit for this. So not that crazy, but still the fact we're seeing it out in public and actually happening is interesting for sure. Next up, I want to touch on Taproot Wizards just for a second. It's been a hot topic, first and foremost because the Taproot Wizards collection is coming. And so everyone's been in a hubbub about the mint price and how do you lock up your quantum cats to get on the whitelist. I don't really care about that stuff. Like, if you want to mint and pay that price, cool. If it doesn't sell out, cool. It probably will. But all that's kind of whatever. One thing that's kind of more interesting is they just announced today that they invested in Odin.fund, which is this new kind of like pump.fund trading platform. Feels like you're using native BTC the entire time. You bridge over to their platform. You never know you're using an L2. On the back end, you're using ICP, but you never see that you're holding a different kind of token. You don't have to sign a bunch of messages and send transactions. You don't have to hold a separate gas asset. So Odin's done a lot of things right to build clean UX that feels fast, but also Bitcoin native. And so Taproot Wizards invested in a strategic round with them. Didn't drop details on the specifics, but that is cool to see. It's also weird to know what exactly is Taproot Wizards. Like, they've raised quite a bit of money. I think they're up to something above 30 million now raised. And besides the NFT collection or the Ordinals collection that's coming, no one really knows what they're working on. Like, they're working on something called CatVM, some kind of roll-up thing. They have a lot of high-caliber devs that they've hired. But for how long they've been around, it's hard to know what actually they're shipping. So a lot of wait and see. Some of their board members are people from Starkware, which is something I'll touch on in a second. But yeah, Taproot Wizards is a very weird, interesting company. So if you want to touch on that, I don't really care about the mint stuff. Do you? It's your money, spend it how you want. But them investing in Odin.fund is pretty interesting. Quick call out to my sponsor this week, which is still me. we're in negotiation with some people. But for now, I'm just going to thank myself for bringing the show to you guys weekly. But if you want to get shouted out during the show or in the newsletter, hit me up, and this will be your spot where I'll call out just how dope you are. All right, next up, I do want to touch on StarkNet. This is a pretty prominent ETH L2, and they're one of the leaders in the ZK technology. So this is zero knowledge proof technology, where you don't have to reveal specifics of these transactions, but you can still prove that something happened, for example. So I wouldn't need to reveal I'm sending this to this and I'm sending this amount. The ZK technology can kind of abstract it away. And so you can still prove cryptographically something happened, but you get much better privacy. And so Starkware would create something called Starks, kind of above my pay grade, but there's two main kinds of ZK technology, Stark, which with a T, and Snark with an N. And they're slightly different in the way they compress the proof of some kind. But they were doing a big push into Bitcoin recently. And so we've seen them somewhat partner with the Tapper Wizards in some fashion. And they made a big announcement the other day that they're doing this hybrid L2 that will settle on both Bitcoin and Ethereum, kind of like what Bob is doing, to connect those two ecosystems, which is pretty interesting. And on top of that, we saw Xverse be the leading integration partner with them. So you'll be able to now use your Xverse wallet, not just for L1 stuff and runes, and not just stacks, but now you can take it to Darknet when their BTC stuff goes live and not have to go into a different wallet. So I'm extremely bullish on Xverse, and wallets is kind of like a friction point. So I have a thesis that the wallet that covers the most L2s that matter, plus has Lightning in some capacity, and the L1 is the one that's kind of going to win and be the touch point. So it's early days. Starknet or Starkware is very well funded, big entity. So it's good to see them coming in. They're probably going to build a lot of tooling for the ecosystem. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out, but cool to see. All right, next up, quickly.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
I want to touch on Greyscale released a short report on high net worth individuals. So Greyscale is one of the leading crypto asset managers. They've launched ETFs way before ETFs were legally like a thing. They were kind of finding some gray area where you could either, hold BTC or hold stacks or whatever it is. And so Greyscale dropped a report saying they polled like 10,000 high net worth individuals in the US, and they saw that of the people who have at least $1 million of liquid investable assets, a quarter of them already hold crypto, and then another 10% plan to invest in crypto in the next year or so. They're trending in the right direction. One other data point is if for people who are 50 and under, about 55% of them are interested in crypto. So it still skews the younger crowd. The old generation still probably finds things like stocks they trust or gold as more, they just know what they know. But interesting facts there. All right, I got 3 more high-level things, then we'll jump into my first pass of this ecosystem kind of update. So one cool thing is we're still trying to debate how do we upgrade Bitcoin. And it seems right now the 2 leading opcode upgrades continue to be OpCat, which was really hot maybe 6 months ago, almost seemed like the clear winner. And then maybe in the past 2 months, it's really shifted, in my opinion, to ETV and check sig from Stack, largely because Jeremy Rubin put some weight behind that proposal. So we'll see what happens. One big thing to note is next month on April 11th and 12th, there's the OPNEXT event, which is a conference focused just on trying to find consensus on the next opcode upgrade. And so it's a great place where all the biggest gigabrains come together and they give panels. But a lot of what's going to happen is in these kind of like backroom chats or dinners, there'll be a lot of discussion to hash it out in person, which will be really interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of improvements on consensus and clarity comes towards the end of April and going into May. And if we get some more direction between those two big ones, because there seems to be a pretty big divide happening between those two on which one makes more sense and the path after the fact, if you choose one or the other. So we'll see what's up with that. Still debating if I should go. It's at MicroStrategy's headquarters in Tysons, Virginia. So if you're in the area, it might be something to check out. All right, two more quick updates. If you're a CEO type, I'm just going to call this out. There's a company called Thunder. Pretty interesting company that makes it easy for regular investors, retail investors, to invest in Bitcoin startups. So they have all the regulatory framework done to be able to do crowdfunding for startups, and they're looking for a CEO. So if you want to work in a Bitcoin startup and you have the chops, hit me up. I can intro you, but it would be cool. I like the idea of this company. It seems like it's cruising along right now. Need someone to take charge on it, but yeah, I love the idea of more democratized access to Bitcoin startups and crowdfunding. I will pivot into, I'm going to do a quick pass on ecosystems, and this will extend over time. I need to find good connections to every kind of major ecosystem, so I can just like plug in, get the news, drop it to you guys. But touch on Stacks first. So a couple of big things in Stacks. Alex released their white paper for their upcoming V3 of their market maker. They're calling it DAM, or Discrete Automated Market Maker. And it's supposed to bring a bunch of big upgrades. And the biggest one might be liquidity can now get pooled much more efficiently. So it's not separated as much, which should allow for much better slippage and better execution of trades across the platform. So that's interesting. They also announced that they are partnering with Jolts. So Jolts is one of the leading taproot asset wallets on Lightning. And they've been building I've known them for a couple of years now. They've been heads down building for a while, and they just now are getting the product close enough to be ready. One, because taproot assets took so long to get to mainnet that still not live on Lightning, for example. It's an L1 protocol first. You mint the asset on the L1, kind of like runes, and then you can bridge them up to Lightning when you need to. So they built an SDK to make it easy for wallet providers and projects to plug into taproot assets. And so Jolts and Alex are partnering to be able to bring USDT through taproot assets into Xlink, and through Xlink into Alex. So that's cool. Yeah, that's the main ones for Stacks. Rootstock, they just had a big upgrade yesterday or 2 days ago. So they had their upgrade of version 7 called Level. And two big things it does: it decreases the gas fees by 60%. And I guess this is actually pretty tricky because so much of Rootstock is secured by miners. They actually have to go and chat with miners around those nodes to agree at some level on what gas fees would be, which is interesting. And then second, they raised the limit of how many what's called pegnatories can run the network. I think it was capped at 9 before, and now it goes up to 60. And so that gives them a much higher ceiling to centralize who controls the BTC peg as you're pegging in and pegging out. That's Rootstock. Lightning, didn't see a whole lot on Lightning. Just a lot of kind of like low-level wallet upgrades. So nothing there. Babylon, they're still just heads down building. One to call out, Lombard, is a project. They're the leading project currently on Babylon. So you stake on Babylon, but you typically stake through a provider. This might be Babylon, this might be Avalon. There's like 10 different big ones. And Lombard's the biggest by far. And they just hit 1 billion in TVL a couple of days ago, which took them 78 days, which is pretty wild. So crazy adoption there. How am I doing on time? I got 6 minutes. I'm probably gonna cut this short. The last two things I'll leave you guys on: a couple of videos that you should watch over the weekend that I found interesting. There's a really good Twitter space on the UTXO management account. That's Bitcoin Magazine's venture arm. And they did a space on USDT on Lightning that has some of the big players like Elizabeth Stark from Lightning, um, Darius from LN5, the biggest hybrid assets protocol, and a few others. That one's worth listening to. It's a good hour. And then Presidio Bitcoin is a new co-working space based in SF. Looks super dope. And they had Jack Dorsey come on, Steve Lee from Spiral, Alex Gladstein, and David Marcus from Lightspark. And they did an hour-long panel on open source that was pretty good. So that's another one that I would recommend if you got time to check out. Double check my notes, but I think that's it. If we ran through, yep, that is it. So thank you all for tuning in. If you listen to it live, for listening, all the links, everything I mentioned will be down below. You can check it out. But that's it. That's like 21 minutes of Bitcoin. Super concise info what happens past 7 days. I'll see you next week.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.